My son handed me the papers device just on Nanawath. You know, test my knowledge, and today the game again.
My son handed me the papers with a smile and said, "Mom, just sign here and everything will be ours." He had no idea that signing would change everything. He didn't know who I really am. I sat there quietly, my fingers brushing the edge of the documents. He thought I was a simple mother, gentle and unaware. He had no idea that I have spent decades mastering numbers, contracts, and the secrets of money. He had no idea that these papers were no match for my mind. Today, the game would begin, and he would finally learn. That silence is not weakness, and calm is not surrender. Hello, dear listeners. Thank you for joining me today. Before I begin my story, I would be very happy if you subscribed to the channel and left a comment writing which state or country you are listening from. It always warms my heart to see how far our stories travel. My name is Sarah. I live in a small, quiet house at the edge of the city, a place that seems harmless from the outside, yet carries a storm within its walls. People call me just a mother, someone soft, someone they can underestimate. They don't know the years I've spent mastering contracts, numbers, and the subtle games of power. They don't know that calm eyes can hide sharp intelligence and a lifetime of strategy. Today, that calm will be mistaken for weakness. And today, that weakness will be the deadliest weapon. My son walked in, holding a stack of papers. He was smiling, his confidence filling the small living room. His hand trembled slightly, but his expression radiated certainty, as if he had already won. "Mom, just sign here. Everything will be ours," he said, pointing at the first line of the contract. I looked at him. My steady gaze met his, and for a moment, I allowed him to believe that I was the same mother he had always known, soft, naive, and gentle. He doesn't know. He doesn't know that these papers are nothing compared to the mind that has studied numbers and contracts for decades. He doesn't know that the calm hand hovering over the documents is the hand of someone who has anticipated every trick, every hidden clause, every deceit before it even appeared. I let silence fill the room. The faint rustle of paper in his hands seemed like a drumbeat to the storm inside me. I remembered all the sacrifices, all the late nights, all the dreams I had put aside to build a life for him. Those years were my education, my armor. He leaned closer. "Mom, come on. It's simple. Sign, and everything is ours." I smiled faintly. Not a happy smile, but the kind that carries quiet danger. "Nothing is ever simple, my son," I said softly. "Easy is always dangerous." For the first time, I saw doubt flicker in his eyes. It was tiny, almost imperceptible, but it was there. His confidence wavered. My silence, my calm, my pause, it was already working. He had no idea. I let my gaze wander to the sunlight spilling through the curtains, touching the papers and his nervous hands. Everything in this room, the soft light, the warm shadows, the ticking clock, became part of the game. Every element mattered, every second counted. "Mom, you know this is good for us. Everything will be secure," he said, slightly louder, trying to mask the flicker of doubt he didn't understand. I leaned back slightly, keeping my hand above the papers, deliberate. "Secure?" I asked, my voice calm, deliberate, almost like a whisper of warning. "Nothing is ever secure if you don't understand what you're signing. Easy always hides danger." He blinked, confusion and disbelief in his expression. He thought he understood power. He thought he could manipulate me. He thought he had the upper hand. He didn't know that I had spent decades reading contracts that could break fortunes, decades understanding leverage, risk, and human weakness. He didn't know that every subtle movement, every inflection of voice, every hesitation in the air is a signal I can read, predict, and counter. I began tracing the lines of the contract with my eyes, silently noting the clauses, the hidden implications, the subtle loopholes. I don't need to act yet. I am patient. Patience is a weapon. Silence is a trap. Knowledge is lethal. "Mom, I just don't understand why you're hesitating. One signature and everything is ours," he pressed, his voice tightening, betraying slight frustration. I smiled. This is the moment. This is when overconfidence meets the calm of preparation. I leaned forward slightly, letting my eyes lock with his. Because, my son, the moment you think everything is yours, you stop seeing what is really in front of you. His eyes widened slightly. I let him feel the weight of my words, the implication of my calm. He fidgets now, his confident mask cracking ever so slightly. I am already ahead. He has no idea. I pick up the papers lightly, just enough for him to notice the title, the weight of the legal language. My finger hovers above the signature line, not because I am hesitant, but because I want him to see the power of pause, the meaning behind patience. Son, I begin slowly, letting each word land carefully. This isn't just about signing your name. It's about understanding what you're really dealing with. His hand trembles. The room is silent except for the soft rustle of paper. He had assumed control. He had assumed that his confidence was enough. He had assumed that I was a simple, quiet mother, someone easily swayed by affection or guilt. He was wrong. I lean back slightly, my hand still hovering over the documents. Every muscle in his body is tense now. I see it in the subtle movements, the slight flush on his face, the tightening of his jaw. He doesn't understand that the calmest person often holds the greatest power. I let my mind run through the possible outcomes, every potential reaction, every escape clause, every trick he might attempt. I have already planned 3 moves ahead. And I know, without a shadow of doubt, that by the time he realizes it, it will be too late. Mom, he whispers, almost pleading now, his confidence eroded. Please, just sign. It's just one signature. I promise I'll make everything easier. I smile again. This time, a little sharper. Promises are meaningless if you don't understand consequences. Knowledge is power and ignorance is a trap. His eyes widen as realization begins to creep in. For the first time, he sees me, not the mother he thought he knew, but the woman who raised him, trained him, and prepared herself for every possible scenario. I let the papers rest in front of him, my hand hovering above them. This game, this test, is not over. And when it ends, you will finally understand that silence is not weakness, calm is not surrender, and the quietest mind often wins. And in that moment, I know he is fine. The moment stretched. My son still believed he had the upper hand, that his confident smile and persuasive words could sway me. He had no idea how wrong he was. Mom, come on. Just sign. Everything will be ours. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, he said, leaning forward again. His tone was persuasive, almost charming. He thought that charm could bypass decades of strategy, calculation, and preparation. I didn't flinch. My fingers hovered just above the paper, untouched. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the twitch in his jaw, but he didn't know how to read me. Everything. I asked softly, letting the words stretch like a shadow across the room. Everything is rarely just everything. There's always something hidden in plain sight. He blinked. Confusion flickered across his confident facade. I let him squirm a little, letting the silence teach him a lesson before words. I've worked hard for you, son. I've given up things you can't even imagine, sacrificed nights, dreams, comforts, all for you, I continued, my voice calm but heavy. And you think one signature can erase that effort? One signature can give you power? You don't even understand what power is. For a second, he hesitated. But then he laughed, nervous yet arrogant. Mom, don't overthink. It's just a signature. I promise. You're worried for nothing. I allowed a faint smile. This is exactly what I had anticipated over confidence. It makes people careless. And mistakes made in carelessness are the easiest to exploit. I leaned slightly closer, letting my calm eyes meet his. Overconfidence, I said, is a dangerous thing, my son. It can make the cleverest fool out of the wisest. Are you ready to take that risk? He paused, unsure now, but still clinging to the illusion of control. And that illusion is exactly what I need him to have. I let him take a small step forward, placing the papers nearer. I could see the pride in his chest, the belief that he was winning. But in reality, I was 3 steps ahead. I traced each line with my eyes, noting every clause, every loophole, every hidden detail. I knew which parts of this contract could trap him if he underestimated them. I had studied him for years, the way he reacts under pressure, the assumptions he makes when he thinks he knows everything. And today, I would use all that knowledge. I began speaking softly, my words deliberate, carefully designed to plant seeds of doubt. Son, did you really read this fully? Every detail? Every clause? Or are you just assuming that everything is simple? He hesitated. I thought I did. But, Mom, really, you're just overthinking again. It's fine. I let him feel the subtle weight of my eyes on him. Every pause, every silence is a strategy. Every word I choose is a weapon. I let him believe he was in control while I silently maneuvered the game in my favor. I reflected back on the years I had trained myself. Years of analyzing contracts, predicting outcomes, understanding human behavior. All of it culminated in this very moment. He thought he was clever. He had no idea that I had already predicted every move he would make, every line he would use, every attempt to manipulate me. You see, my son, I said slowly, the problem isn't just the signature. The problem is what you don't see, what you take for granted, and what you assume I don't understand. His face paled slightly. For the first time, he felt that maybe he had underestimated me. Just a fraction of doubt, but enough to make him hesitate. And hesitation is the beginning of fear. I leaned back slightly, keeping my hand above the signature line, letting the tension fill the room. He stared at the papers, then back at me, trying to read the calm in my face. But what he didn't realize was that every wrinkle, every quiet expression, carried the weight of decades of experience, of preparation, of quiet power. Mom, please, just one signature. I promise I'll make everything smooth, everything easy, he said, voice trembling slightly now. I let a small, controlled smile cross my lips. Promises are meaningless, son. Understanding consequences is everything. You think signing this will give you power, but power without knowledge is worthless. He took a small step back, realizing he had misjudged me. The overconfidence that had driven him so far now wavered. He looked at me differently, not as the mother he thought he knew, but as someone far more formidable, someone he had never seen before. I let him see it, the moment when realization hits. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to show anger. Silence and control, combined with knowledge, is far more terrifying than any shout. And then, just before the tension reaches its peak, I placed my hand fully on the papers, not to sign, but to let him feel the weight of his assumptions crushing down on him. Son, I said softly, my voice calm yet commanding, you've learned something today. Perhaps not everything, but enough. You see, the quietest mind often carries the sharpest blade, and the calmest heart holds the greatest power. Don't ever underestimate it again. His shoulders slumped slightly. The shock and realization were evident. He thought he could outsmart me. He thought he could manipulate me. But he had only played into my plan unknowingly, perfectly. The room went silent. I let him absorb every word, every pause, every lesson hidden in my calm demeanor. And I knew the game had only just begun. The house was quiet. The papers lay untouched on the wooden table, but the tension in the room was almost suffocating. My son sat opposite me, thinking he was still in control. His confidence had crumbled slightly, but he hadn't yet realized the full extent of my preparation. You think just standing here and smiling will make me sign? I asked softly, letting my calm voice slice through the tension. You don't understand what you're asking. He frowned. Mom, you're making this complicated. Just sign it and we move on. Everything will be easy. I leaned forward slightly, my fingers tracing the edge of the papers. Easy? I repeated. Do you know what easy truly costs? Do you know what ignorance truly costs? He looked confused, unsure now. And this is exactly where I wanted him. Confusion, hesitation, doubt, they are cracks in the armor of overconfidence. I remembered all the late nights I spent preparing, all the contracts I analyzed, all the lessons I learned about human nature. Every ounce of knowledge I had gained over decades was about to pay off. You've assumed that I'm just a mother, I continued softly, deliberately. You've assumed that I will bend to your desires, that I will surrender to charm, promises, or impatience. But assumptions, my son, are dangerous. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the papers again. But I didn't move. I let him feel the weight of the moment, the consequences of underestimating someone he thought he knew. And in that silence, the first seeds of fear began to take root. I finally spoke, my voice calm but firm, deliberate with each word. Son, do you truly understand what these papers represent? Do you understand the legal, financial, and hidden implications of what you are asking me to sign? He hesitated, the confidence in his posture faltering. I thought I did. But, Mom, you know more than I do. Exactly. That admission was all I needed. I allowed a small smile to appear, soft but unmistakably powerful. You see, knowledge is not something that comes with youth, overconfidence, or bravado. It comes with patience, observation, and experience. And I have plenty of all three. I leaned back slightly, letting the words sink in. I have spent decades analyzing contracts, navigating financial mazes, and seeing people's true intentions. And you thought you could outsmart me with a few papers and a smile. His face turned pale. He finally saw me, not just as a mother, but as the woman who had raised him, trained him, and prepared for moments exactly like this. I reached for the papers slowly, deliberately. I'm going to sign, but only when the conditions are right. Until then, consider this a lesson. Power is never given. It is earned. And it is never what it seems. His shoulders slumped. He realized, finally, that the game was never his to win. He had been playing against someone far more capable than he could have imagined. I placed my hand fully on the papers not to sign, but to show him control. Every second stretched. The room seemed to shrink, the shadows growing longer, the tension more suffocating. Son, I said, my voice calm but full of authority, today you learned the first of many lessons. Never underestimate someone who has been quietly preparing, quietly learning, quietly watching. The quietest mind often holds the sharpest edge, and the calmest heart carries the greatest strength. He finally lowered his eyes, realizing the truth he had ignored for too long. He had underestimated me. He had assumed that love and familiarity meant weakness. But love does not equal weakness. Patience does not equal submission. Calm does not equal surrender. I signed my name on the papers, but only after carefully rewriting some clauses, ensuring the terms favored fairness, justice, and a subtle lesson in humility for him. It was not revenge in anger, but in intelligence. A silent victory. Every action has a consequence, I told him softly. And every choice you make must be measured, understood, and respected. Power is not what you take, it is what you learn to wield responsibly. He nodded slowly, comprehension and remorse mingling on his face. He understood now, not just the power of money or documents, but the power of wisdom, patience, and subtlety. And as I stood up, placing the papers safely in my folder, I knew one truth. The game was over. And I had won not with anger, not with force, but with knowledge, strategy, and quiet power. The room remained silent, but the lesson would echo forever. He would never forget it. The house felt different now. Lighter. As if the walls themselves had witnessed the truth and finally exhaled. The papers were no longer just papers, they were lessons, scars, and mirrors reflecting who we truly were. My son sat quietly, his head slightly lowered. Not defeated, not broken, changed. For the first time, he didn't speak with confidence. He didn't try to persuade. He didn't try to control. He just sat there, thinking. Mom, he finally said, his voice low, stripped of arrogance. I never thought. I never imagined you were capable of all this. I looked at him, really looked at him. Not as a strategist. Not as an analyst. But as a mother. That, I replied softly, is exactly where you went wrong. He looked up confused. You thought capability had to be loud. You thought power had to announce itself. You thought intelligence needed to show off, I continued. But real power, real intelligence, stays quiet until it's needed. Silence returned, but this time it wasn't tense. It was heavy with understanding. I didn't raise you to win at any cost, I said. I raised you to understand consequences. To respect people. To know that shortcuts often lead to dead ends. His eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time, shame mixed with realization. I thought I was being smart, he whispered. I thought I was protecting myself. No, I replied gently. You were protecting your ego. That hit him harder than anger ever could. I stood up slowly, my movements calm, deliberate. The same calm that had confused him earlier, now it comforted him. Let me tell you something you never asked, I said. I became a financial analyst not for power, not for money, but because I learned very early that the world is not kind to people who don't understand it. He listened. Truly listened. I stayed quiet all these years, I continued, not because I didn't know more, but because I wanted you to grow without fear. I wanted you to learn. But somewhere along the way, you mistook silence for ignorance. He nodded slowly. I'm sorry, Mom, he said. 2 simple words. Heavy. Honest. And in that moment, the story stopped being about contracts, money, or manipulation. It became about growth. I don't need your apology, I said. I need your awareness. I picked up the folder and placed it away, out of sight. This ends here. No more games. No more assumptions. If we move forward, we do it with honesty. He stood up too, straighter now, not taller, but wiser. I understand now, he said. You didn't defeat me. You taught me. A small smile touched my lips. That, I said, was always the goal. As he walked toward the door, he paused and turned back. Mom, you're not just strong, he said. You're dangerous. I chuckled softly. No, my son. I'm prepared. The door closed behind him. I returned to the table, running my fingers over the smooth wood. The battle was over. Not because someone lost, but because someone learned. And that is the rarest kind of victory. Never underestimate quiet people. Silence is not weakness. Calm is not ignorance. And wisdom doesn't need permission to win.